Happy Sunday. I am blown away. I am already blown away. Happy Sunday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Is looking and feeling like spring day here in the tiny state of Delaware. I hope it is looking and feeling amazing wherever you are. Let me know if y'all can hear me and see me okay. I think I figured out, that's why I'm smiling so brightly. I think I figured out the issue with Instagram. So, hey, Instagram, y'all got done dirty last Sunday or 2 weeks ago um, because something happened and I couldn't figure out how to have my two screens operating at the same time. So, if you hear me, see me, let me know. Erica, bless your sweet, sweet, sweet soul. Erica said, y'all give a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. Y'all help that algorithm out. I appreciate that. Happy Sunday to you, Rachel. Thank you for being here. Happy Sunday to you, Hope and Victory. And thank you to all of you who extended grace last Sunday. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted, and I needed to take some time. And I'm going to always take my time to rest. Well, maybe not always, but when my body is telling me you need to rest, then that's what I chose to do. So we didn't meet up last Sunday. We're here today. I'm only assuming that you can hear me, see me. If you see me look off to the right, it's because I don't want to leave out my Instagram fam. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all of the grace that you have extended my way. It really it truly warms my heart and tickles my soul. And so, thank you all for tuning in every Sunday. I didn't even introduce myself. For those of you who are watching live or watching the replay and are unfamiliar with this space, my name is a spiritual life coach, international spiritual life coach, Yolanda. I am also a Reiki master teacher. I am also a certified birth doula, certified lactation support person, meditation guide, dot, 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 dot. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I am fiance, I am friend, sister, auntie, all of the good things that the good Lord has afforded me in this life. I am, and I'm grateful to be here. This is what I call Mama Meditations. It's unlike a traditional meditations. It's something that we meditate on, things that we ponder this year. I've chosen to focus on power, our personal power, our internal power all year long. And we know, those of us who have been here for a minute or two, recognize that that takes some time. It's not something that can be done in 2 days, 3 weeks. And so we're going to break down all of the elements that can support us in identifying our personal power. And so for the first 3 months of this year, we have been creating clarity around where our physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional power might be going. The power that we all desire to have, we already have it. It might just be going into different places and spaces that we are not clear about. So we want to gain clarity. It's like when you get your utility bill and they tell you, okay, from this point in time to this point in time, this is how much energy or water or data that you've used. And then they break it down. You use X amount of data in this place, X amount of water here, X amount of electricity here. And that's similar to what we've been doing for the first 3 months of this year. Where is my physical power going? Where am I at most of the time physically? What am I paying attention to? What is draining me of my physical energy? If my health is not imbalanced, then that might be taking up a lot of your physical power. If you are in toxic environments, if you physically place yourself in toxic environments, that may be draining your energy physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, because they're all connected. Are taking a look at where we are thinking. Where are your thoughts? Where are your primary thoughts? And the power that it takes to generate thought, to generate a belief, to generate what you believe to be a fact can also give you clarity on where your personal power is going. It's similar to, I was just outside and I had my wheelbarrow going around the yard picking up sticks, and I noticed there is a hole in the bottom of my wheelbarrow. Now, that wheelbarrow is not going to be able to do what it used to do for me because now there's a hole. So, anytime I put water or dirt in that wheelbarrow, that dirt, that water, whatever I put in there is going to go through that hole, and it's not going to be, even though it looks similar, it looks like it did last year. And if I hadn't turned it over, I wouldn't have even known. So if you don't know where your power is going, if you don't know where the holes are mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, then you could be telling yourself, I don't have any power. I don't have any passion. I don't know what I'm doing. We could be telling ourselves all of these different things without recognizing we do have all that we need within us. We just need to gain clarity on where these things are going, how we are viewing them, what our perception is, and how can we shift it to our best ability. And what does that require? It requires you to be honest with yourself, to tell the truth about where you are in your life and why things may not look the way that you would like for them to look. And it's, again, I say this all the time, not to beat yourself up or to feel worse, but for you, just like that bill you get every month, for you to be very clear about what's going on in your life. That also requires accountability. We are accountable for the bills that we receive every month. We are accountable for the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical energy that may be draining from us at all times. So we have to be accountable. Commitment and consistency. To me, they are a married couple. If you are not committed to something and consistent, how are you going to move forward? How are you going to shift things in your life? So, in order to gain clarity, you have to be committed to the practices, to the habits, and to the tools. And we'll talk about some of those today, which are going to help you and support you in gaining clarity. Self awareness. Becoming self aware or being self aware is really just about noticing more about what's going on in your life. Instead of life telling you what to do, you are aware that you are in full control mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And having that level of self awareness where you're checking yourself before thoughts, feelings, and behaviors take over, and then you find yourself in places that you wish you didn't. And I added surrender a little bit late in in this process because I recognize for myself and perhaps for you that surrender is something that we don't always take into account when we are doing some personal development work. What used to work for you may no longer be working, so you have to surrender to the idea that you don't know how to do this, that you don't know what it's going to look like, that you don't know what's going to show up, that you don't know who you're going to become. Surrender and trust that all is well or on its way to being well. So, for those of you who, have been here for a minute, I believe I posted that on my Instagram and perhaps my Facebook. I'm not really sure. But if I haven't, I will do so after the end. So, happy Sunday again. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're feeling, whether you are live or watching the replay. You can still comment on the videos. I see the comments even after our sessions end on Sundays, and I love the feedback. It supports me and making sure that I am offering information that is worthwhile. It keeps me grounded, recognizing that this is work. This is spiritual work, and it should not be taken lightly. And so, as we have gone through the physical, the mental, the emotional, I said 2 weeks ago that today we were going to start talking about the spiritual state of being, our spiritual state of being. And if you looked at the description for today, there were no words. Usually I'll give a description about what this meditation is going to be about. I did not give any description. All I said was it was divine, connecting to divine spirit. That's it. Because as we are looking at our spiritual selves, our spiritual state of being, that is something that you are going to have to define for yourself. Oftentimes, when we are trying to define what spirituality means, we start with what it's not. And I don't always like to do that. I like to be very clear about what something is, how to identify it, how to integrate it into my life, all of those things. But when it comes to spirituality, in my opinion, it is so individualized because we are all unique. Hey, my sis, how are you? Happy Sunday. We are all so infinitely unique. The you are today is not the you were tomorrow. You will be tomorrow is not the you were yesterday. When you think about the you are in this moment is not the you that you are going to be an hour from now. And so with all of this infinite uniqueness, how do we, define spiritual our own spirituality with some words that keep us limited? And so, all of this uniqueness that exists in the world, in all living things, is it there's we will never experience life the same way every single time. We might do the same things from day to day, for those of us who work and we feel like, you know what, I do the same thing every day. You don't experience it the same way. There's always some intricate difference. To try to define what spirituality is can put us in trouble. Now, for some people, it is religion. And for me, I can say that religion can be a pathway to spirituality, but religion often comes with limitations, a particular dogma, a particular way of seeing things. And for me, and I keep saying for me because I think that we will all have to define what our own spirituality means. For me, it means there are all things in all things. Hey, my love, how are you? She made it. You made it. For me, when I think about spirituality, I, of course, think of myself in terms of I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And that human experience comes with limitations. But me as a spiritual being, there are no limitations. Again, it's so vast and so infinite. When I think about my spiritual state of being, I recognize that I know everything and I don't know nothing at the same time. That even as much as I have gathered in my life, there is still more for me to learn. And that blows me away every single time I think about it. Like I will consistently say, I'm an old lady, I'm an old lady. And I mean that in terms of wisdom. Like my life experience, our life experiences have allowed us to gain so much wisdom and we still don't know everything that we are here to know and to learn and to experience. That blows me away. So when I think about, hey Alicia, how are you? When I think of spirituality, I think about it in terms of the foundation of everything. It can be a perspective, it can be a consciousness, it is connection to the truth of all things that exceed our human limitations. And so when I think about my spiritual state of being, it's not with, you know, uh, 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 one view. It's all the views. Let me experience all that I am here to experience without putting a human label on it of negative, positive, good, bad. Let me experience it, process it. And because I am a spiritual being, let me understand that there is something for me to learn within this experience as a human, as a human, which has its limits. I could, as a spiritual life coach, never tell anyone, well, your religion is not going to help your spirituality. For many people, and even for myself, religion has been the foundation for my spirituality. Now, I was raised as a young woman, Baptist. My parents, I believe everybody in my family line, Baptist to the Southern Baptist to the day they left this earth. And that religion supported and gave me a foundation that now still, even though I have expanded my understanding beyond the limits of Baptist religion, I've expanded my awareness, I've expanded my consciousness, I've expanded what I believe in. But if I did not have that foundation, I don't believe the expansion would have happened in the way that it has happened. And so there are particular rituals and habits that happen within religion that have supported my spirituality. For instance, prayer. I was brought up in a family that if something went wrong, we're going to pray about it. That was the first thing that we did. However, as I have matured spiritually, I have recognized that prayer is not just some, get out of free jail card. Prayer is not something that we enter into just when things are bad. Prayer is going on at all times. Prayer is communication with a divine spirit that we are all connected to, whether we recognize it, acknowledge it, or not. Oh, Ladybug. Oh, what a question. What does it mean to you to be a matriarch? Let me tell you, I have never really thought about it until um, my mother passed away. My mother passed away in 2009. And one of my very good and dear friends said to me, "Well, now you're the matriarch of your family." And I was like, "What you talking about?" What do you mean? So I never really thought about it or understood what that meant until that question was posed to me in 2009. And it was like, okay, so because my mother is not here, now I have to be what she was. And I never saw myself that way. So when it came to being a matriarch, of course, I'm trying to follow in her footsteps, failing the entire time because her footsteps were never supposed to be my footsteps. When I talked about earlier that infinite uniqueness, I admire and am inspired by the walk that my mother and others have had, but that's not my walk. And I had to learn that becoming or being a matriarch was going to look different for me than it did for her. Um, and so it's not something that I think about a lot, but I do think about mothering a lot. I am that self awareness we talked about it earlier. I am self aware that the energy I possess is one of a matriarch, a mother. I have given birth to 4 children, but I have children everywhere. And it doesn't mean that I see adults as childlike, but I recognize that that is the energy that I possess. And so I may be mothering people who have mothers, who are mothers, and I actually recognize when I'm missing that in my own life. I think we talked about that 2 weeks ago, beloved, when I said I don't have any elder women in my life right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm not mothered, because you, Professor Natasha, you certainly mothered us by offering your perspective on life, by introducing us to your ladybug and talking about what she meant to you. That was mothering as well. Um, so I understand what you mean, that most people in your family followed the lead of your great grandmother, and there was a time that I did too. And I do hold my mother's footsteps, my grandmother's footsteps, my aunts, and they were all different women. My maternal grandmother had 4 daughters, and all of those daughters were different. And I loved aspects of all of those daughters. And I think I have some of all of those 4 women who, supported and helped raise me along with my mother. But I know that I'm different, that their time period was different. Their resources that were available to them were different. The way they saw the world was different. And I have two daughters who have told me they're never expecting to have children. That's not their role in the world, which I believe to be a very brave thing for young people to say. That's not my life path. That's not something that I want to do, because for most of us it was an expectation, and everybody was like, when you going to have some kids? That's just something that we expected um, women to do. And I love the fact that we are in a time period where young people are saying, no, that's not for me. That's not the path that I am choosing to take. But that doesn't mean that we don't all have a mothering spirit and a fathering spirit. I recognize a time when I have to be what we align with the energy of fathers. So, recognizing that her footsteps, of course, were not mine, but I am still a nurturer. Not everyone is good at that. And if you are self aware enough to recognize, I do not have the nurturing spirit. And not everyone is supposed to have that. I think that's the other expectation. We think all women are supposed to be nurturers. No, no. Not everyone has that energy within them, and not everyone feeds that energy. Not everyone identifies with that energy, nor should you force it if it doesn't feel authentic. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still some energy within you that is supportive of the collective consciousness. And that's what I believe. And so, as we are talking about spirituality, I recognize that one form of my spirituality is the mother aspect. One form of my spirituality is the father aspect. One form, there's so many different, infinite energies within each and every single one of us. Do you recognize that right now you are the thorn in someone's side? But it might be necessary for you to be the thorn in someone's side, and you may not even know it. Like, there may be people right now who are just so tired and fed up with you, and you don't even know them on a personal level. You could be working with them, you could be driving in the car next to them, and they're just like, I can't stand him, I can't stand her. And they don't even know you personally, but for whatever reason, you represent a particular thing in their life, and you might need to be that representation to push them towards something else. We don't know. We don't know. We don't always know the energy that we possess. And another thought that I have had this week, and still formulating it in my mind, processing it, was, that we don't get the opportunity to tell other people how they experience us. We move through life, and we have a consciousness that says, I'm a good person, I'm a kind person. Everyone may not believe that. Everyone may not like your brand of kindness, niceness, or whatever you believe yourself to be. Again, you might be the villain in someone else. Somebody's telling a story and you are the villain and you have no idea. You may not have ever said anything to this person, but for whatever reason, you represent the antithesis of everything that they hold and believe to be true. And I would always also say, and so what? We have no idea how other people experience us. You could go to work tomorrow and be sweet, come to work with donuts and coffee for everyone, and someone could interpret that as you being too much, and they just don't like you. They just don't like you. There's really nothing for you to do about it if that hasn't been communicated to you. No matter how nice and sweet and loving you are, they just don't like you, because we don't get to tell other people how they experience us, because it's going to be based upon their perception, their consciousness, or whatever else they got going on, right? And so if we waste our time trying to shift ourselves, twist ourselves, and mold ourselves into something that everybody is going to like, accept, or, be okay with, we are going to tie ourselves into knots. The only thing that you can be is authentic to yourself. And if there are other people that align with that, wonderful. If there are other people who don't, wonderful. I hear people say, well, I'm not for everybody. I'm for me and anybody else who decides they're okay with it. There might be people in your life that you think are really supportive and loving and for you, and deep down inside there is a unacknowledged hatred. I experienced something last week that at this point it's making me chuckle. It's really making me laugh that we really don't always understand who people are. We understand who people show up as. People come into our life and they say, "This is who I am." These are all the things that I am. That may not be their true self. That might be the them that they want to show us. And we'll get back on topic, but I do think this is aligned with spirituality, because so many of us want to define it for other people. Oh, you don't do that? Oh, you don't meditate? Well, you're not spiritual. Oh, you don't have crystals? Well, you're not spiritual. Oh, you don't, lay out in the sun and do these things, or you don't fast for 40 days, or so many other people want to define what other people are. And so I do think that this is important. As I said, I experienced something that showed me a different side of someone, not someone that I thought that I knew well, but someone that I was growing to know. And then I saw a different side, and I was like, we really don't know who people are. We really don't. I don't even know who I am half the time. So for me to think that I know who someone is, or how they operate, or we don't know. We are all trying to discover who we are, what makes us tick, what triggers us, what inspires us. And it changes from day to day. I was just sitting thinking that I know exactly how I want my spring summer to go. I'm going to wear this, I'm going to buy these kind of shoes, and then I saw another shoe. I was like, "Ooh, no, I think I want that." Ooh, I was in the store with my children yesterday, and I haven't been in a store in so long. Like, I usually just buy my stuff online. We went to Marshalls. Oh my God, it was too much. I was like, "There's just way too many things here that I want to put my hands on, and that we got to get out of here." So even we think we understand the desires of our heart. We think we know what we like. We Until something new is introduced, and we're like a squirrel, like, "Oh, I think I like that now. Oh, I think I like that now." We're constantly learning about ourselves. So for any single one of us to think that we can define spirituality for another person or for ourselves, you might be creating some chaos. If you think that's the human part of us that wants to limit what we believe to be true because it makes us comfortable. But if we have a true connection to the truth of all things, we would recognize we don't know anything and we know everything all at the same time. One of my prayers this week to God was, I thank you for showing me every single thing that I have ever needed to see. I believed in that moment I was not unclear about anything in my life, because everything that I've needed to see, I have seen, I have heard. If I haven't heard it, if I haven't seen it, if I haven't experienced it, it's because it's not time yet. That's what I believe. I don't believe there's things I don't know. I ain't supposed to know. I'll know it when I'm supposed to know it. And I'm trusting that the divine will reveal it when it's supposed to be revealed. That is me gaining clarity over my life, instead of being at the extremes where I'm worried about this, worried about that, worried about this, worried about that. It's like I, we can't operate that way. My spirituality will not allow me to operate in confusion and chaos. I have to operate in clarity, but also understanding I don't know everything. But if I carry the perspective, if I carry the consciousness that I know everything, God will never withhold anything from you that you need. Write that down. Nothing, anything that you need will not be withheld from you. It will not be withheld from you. When you need it and when you are ready and open to receive it. Now, that's the key. Are you open and ready to receive it? So many of us want particular things. Are you ready to hold it with the responsibility that is necessary? Because information comes with responsibility. We say we want what wisdom, you better you say you want to be wise and intelligent, you better ask yourself, are you ready and prepared for the responsibility that comes with that wisdom? Because we can't act like we don't know when something has been revealed to us. When some information is popped in your brain, you could try to ignore it. It's going to eat away at you. It's like, I don't know if anyone of you have had the experience where a secret has been revealed within your family, where you thought you knew something to be true, and then this information is now smacked in your face, and now everything seems like it was a lie. Everything you're trying to process this new information. That's a huge responsibility. And so in order for us to be able to keep worry out of our bodies, out of our mind, out of our consciousness, you have to start to recognize nothing is ever going to be withheld from me if I need it. The universe does not operate that way. If I need it and I'm ready to handle the responsibility of it, it will be revealed. And sometimes we're asking for things before we're prepared, which is why when our good sister, Professor Natasha, said that self love is a spiritual practice, it's a practice, meaning it has action. It's something that you're doing on a regular basis to fine tune the very thing you say you want to be, the very thing you say you want to embody. You want to embody peace. How are you practicing it? You say you want to embody honesty. How are you practicing it? You say you want to embody love. How are you practicing it? And so for me, spirituality is I got to tell myself the truth, and not the truth that makes me comfortable or keeps things hidden or, helps me avoid things because I'm an avoider. Listen, well, let me say this. When I'm operating at extremes, and I know you can't see my hands, but on one hand, I'm either going to avoid it and act like it's not happening. And on the other extreme, I'm going to be so consumed about it, I can't think about anything else. That is when I'm out of alignment, when I am not thinking clearly, when there is no clarity. And one of the ways that I can bring it back to center is to recognize there are some things about this that I'm afraid of, and there's some things about this that I want to know everything about. And how do I create a healthy balance of the two? By telling myself what I need to know will be revealed. And if I haven't figured it out just yet, I haven't prepared myself well. That I need to do some more prep work, some more preparation, some more practice. Can you imagine if somebody gave you something and you were not prepared for it? I know when we talked to our beloved last week, and you have worked in the family and child services field, kudos to you for being able to do that. Imagine if somebody knocked on your door at 2 in the morning and said, here's three siblings that you know nothing about, that you are not prepared for in your home, but now you need to take care of them until they're 18. Bye. You would be scrambling. And I know that there are times when that happens. That's a reality for some people. Like they're living their single life on a Monday, and on Tuesday they now have the responsibility of caring for children that they did not anticipate. And so when you think about that in terms of your personal development and why things take time, do you really believe that the universe just want to plops things in your lap before you are prepared, before you are ready, before you have had the time and the space to expand your consciousness to even understand what it is that's going on? But we just out here asking for stuff. I want this, I want this. Everything that you ask for, there is a corresponding energy attached to it. Make sure that you are prepared for that as well. And for me, it's sometimes it feels like the minute I say I want something, it happens like that, and I am not ready. I am not always ready. I'm like, yeah, well, you asked for it. You asked for it. Let me go back here. Mm. Thank you for your honesty in saying that. Your heart needs a break. That is a level of self awareness that I think we all need to aspire to have. When you know that you need a break, instead of trying to push through it and push past it, when you say, my heart needs a break, I need to operate in clarity. And also, I don't know everything. God will never withhold anything that you need. And even when I've told myself that lie in the past, well, I didn't have this growing up and I didn't have that growing up. And I look at myself now, it's like, well, baby, obviously you didn't need those things. Yes, the road to get there may have been more difficult, but it was never denied you because look at where you are now. So you have to believe that you are not being denied anything, particularly when the universe and the world is so infinite. All of these different experiences that are open to us, the only thing that will hold us back is our resistance to receiving it and being in it because of our human self, not necessarily our spiritual self. Your spiritual self knows. It's that human self we got to get in order to say, what are you afraid of? One of the things that has also helped me is knowing that the more I operate from a sense of spirituality and spiritualness, the less fear that I will have, the less fear that I have, and the more I become mature spiritually, I'm not worried like I used to be. And to know and to feel the worry leave your body is one of the most beautiful things that can happen. I can remember when my nervous system felt like it was always overwhelmed, always anxious. And there was a time that I was diagnosed with PTSD and always feeling like something, that the next tragedy was going to happen and worrying about this and worrying about that. And it's like the more you operate from a sense of a spiritual nature, spiritual maturity, the less and less your body is just feeling that way. I don't want to feel like that. That anxiousness, that every time the phone rings, it's like, oh, what, what's going on? What new tragedy is going on? I had the audacity to want to watch the news last week. And I'm like, what? What is this? What is, and then I caught myself. I was like, wait a minute. These things are happening all the time throughout the globe. There's always something going on. It's not just going on in your community, it's not just going on in that community. It is all, there is turmoil always going on. You want to connect yourself to the turmoil or you want to connect yourself to the peace that is also going on. Peace is always going on around the world. We cannot think of the world as being so out of balance that the only thing we focus on is the doom and the gloom and the, oh my God, this war is going on, that war is going on, this war is going on, because there's a whole lot of peace, stability, clarity going on in the world too. My love says, Peace I leave you with, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. We cannot, and we have been told, you can't operate like that. As a spiritual being, you cannot operate from fear. As a human, you're going to operate from fear all the time. All the time. Really? That's what was at the top of your journal page. Beautiful. And that takes practice. Not operating in fear takes practice. Recognizing the discipline that you need to impart in your spirituality, because spirituality does take discipline, which is why I said for many people, religion may have been the foundation for your spirituality. Because one thing religions will teach you is discipline. Don't do this, don't do that, can't have this, can't have that. And most of the major religions have a code of conduct, of behavior. When it comes to spirituality, there are typically four things. There's more than four things, but love has got to be at the top. Discipline, which is another form of love, has to be there. Intention, because if we're just loving things, things are great, things are wonderful. Hey, Instagram, I hope y'all can hear me. If we're just, loving things and we feel that we're creating discipline in our lives, but there's no intention and action, how are you transferring that love and discipline outwardly? If you are creating it internally, how is it translated externally? Are you just loving in here? You just keeping all the love for yourself and not connecting it with others. I have several experiences of love every single day. And not because I'm waiting for other people to create them, because I'm creating them. What would be loving in this moment? What could I do in this moment that would be loving for me and the other person? Now, I don't know if they're going to see it as a loving act, but I know that's my intention. That is my intention. And I am so surrounded by love every single day, even in those moments when I can't receive it. Those moments where you're just feeling like, I don't want to be bothered with nobody. I don't want to talk to anyone. My child told me the other day, she's like, all you do is you come home and you go to sleep and we don't have time together. And for me, what I'm hearing is, I want to love you more. You're not creating opportunities for us to do that. So it's my responsibility. It's my intention to create more opportunities for me to love on this child, love on the people in my life. I had a conversation with one of my good friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time. And I was like, I have to take full responsibility for the lack of love that I've shown in all of my relationships. If I am in relationship with someone and we have an agreement, that agreement has to include love. And if I'm not checking up on you and you checking up on me, then where's the love? Now, we all have things that are going on, and time and space gets in the way, but we cannot get so busy with life things that we forget about love things. Love has got to be at the forefront. And if we're so worried about the things, the material things, how things look to other people, and we leave love out, then how are you connected to your spiritual self if you're not connected to love? That's a good question. So when you think about your spiritual state of being, how much loving are you doing to yourself, to others, to people you never even meet? Yesterday, grandbaby girl, my daughter, my son-in-law, we went to a zoo, and as we're walking to the zoo, we walked past one of those little library. People build the little libraries, and people can put books in and take books from. I just always assumed that they were for kids' books, and so we're looking at the books that are in this little library, and I'm like, oh my gosh, anybody could get their hands on that. I'm hoping that children aren't just reaching in there and grabbing a book. I hope someone is monitoring that. That's not really how they are operated. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, that book is going to get into the hands of the person that needs it. I'm going to trust that. And I'm going to put that energy out instead of worrying about, some it's fallen into the wrong hands and then a child is going to be exposed to that. Could that happen? Yes. But let me put my energy to good use and put out into the universe that those books are going to get into the hands of people who need them at that particular moment. That's my intention, to put more love, express more love instead of worrying about all of the things that could go wrong. We spend so much time worrying about all of the things that could go wrong that we don't give ourselves the freedom to engage in the thoughts that would push things forward. Hey, my love. And as my love just said, she that Bible verse, John 14:27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Why are we allowing our hearts to be so occupied and focused on all of the things that are going wrong, the war that is in the world? And let me stop and say right now, I have noticed, and maybe you have too, that within the past 2 to 3 weeks, there has been an outpouring of loss. There has been an outpouring of people losing people or the anniversary of people that they have lost. Like I've noticed it on my timeline. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many people passed away during this time period. And of course, when anniversaries of any sort, whether it's a birthday, transition day, we really don't always need a day. But this time of the year, as things are coming new, it may also bring up feelings of loss. And it can feel like you can't focus on anything else. This is a transitionary period. We're moving from one season to another season. I was outside today and I'm looking at all the flowers that have popped up and little buds on the trees, and things are starting to come alive again. And you may also be experiencing somewhere in your life either a loss of something or some transition or some uncertainty, because we don't know if those flowers are going to come up the same every year. We don't know if that tree is going to survive the winter. We don't know. We don't know. And as we were at the zoo yesterday, a lot of the animals were sleeping, and I'm like, well, they're just coming out of hibernation. For some of them, for many of them, their internal clocks have still not woken up. And we had daylight savings time, and I know my internal clock has not caught up with that hour that we seem to have lost. So right now, for many of us, it can feel like we are out of sorts. What the heck is going on? I can't seem to grasp anything because so many things are going on all at once. I feel like I'm living in several realities. Stuff is going on here, stuff is going on there. It could feel like that. Also, what you see going on globally in some form of fashion is going to be, you will recognize or you can identify it happening. So if we see war going on in other parts of the world, there might be a war going on internally in your own personal life. If we are seeing things being dismantled, torn apart, people saying we don't want to live this way anymore, we're going to create a new regime, we're going to do things differently, you might feel that there is an internal revolution going on in your own personal life where the things that used to work, they don't work anymore. And so now I got to figure out what is my life path, because the one I was walking on had a hole in it and I almost stepped in it and fell in it. And now I don't know, I'm treading lightly. Your spirituality and being connected in a spiritual way, I'm going to say is the answer for you. That perhaps these things are happening or you're becoming aware of them more is because there is something else for you to tap into, to connect to, and to acknowledge. Not everyone is going to do it in the same way. When I talked about that infinite uniqueness of spirituality, not everyone is going to do it in the same way. I could never tell anybody, you need to do XYZ and then go back do ABC and then maybe GHI and then go back to. There is no prescription for how you come into your fullness of your spirituality. If you are intending, if you desire, if you, as our good sister said, I recognize my heart needs a break. I recognize my mind needs a break. I recognize something in my life has to shift because what's going on now, this ain't it. Remember, spirituality being the foundation of everything. If you are not feeling sure, then you go to the foundation to see what's going on down here. What's going on? What am I standing on? What's holding me up? And if you feel like nothing is holding you up, then it's a divine opportunity for you to build yourself up in a new way. To say, let me expand my consciousness, my perspective. Let me look at where I'm spending all of my mental, emotional, and physical energy in. Because your mental, your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual state of being, they're all connected, intertwined. One is going to affect the other. If you don't feel well mentally, you're not going to feel well spiritually, or it's going to be more challenging for you to feel well spiritually. For many of us who like, I can't meditate, I can't pray, because there might be something mentally or emotionally going on that's interfering with that. I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to, engage in a spiritual practice. And one of the things that in my conversation with Professor Natasha, we talked about how the things that used to work for you or the things you used to do may no longer work because you are different. So if you had a spiritual practice that looked like I get up at 6 a.m., I pray for an hour, I drink my tea, and like if you have a habit that you seem to have broken from and it seems hard for you to get back in, perhaps that is a signal that there's something else for you. I can't tell you what that something else is. That's for you to discover, which is why it is wonderful that there is the infinite uniqueness of experiences for us to have. Go sit with someone that you've never sat with before and learn something. Be inspired by something. Religion is one of those things that separates us. And every once in a while, I'll see like an interfaith event, and I'm like, that's just beautiful. Why is that not going on all the time? Why do we have to put aside a particular day where all of the different faiths come together and support one another? Why are we not doing that every day? How come the Baptists aren't sitting with the, Methodists? Well, we don't do what they do, and they don't do what we do. Perhaps it's time for some disruption of what you used to do because that is no longer working and you are becoming, which is why spiritual state of being, the B part is capitalized because we are so focused on doing instead of being. Perhaps there needs to be some disruption to what you used to do. And as I said earlier, my mother's walk was not my walk. She may have laid the footsteps or cleared out the pathway, but once I stepped on that path, it was going to look different. It has to. It has to look different. I'm grateful for the foundation that she created, and I can stand on that, but I'm going to expand it because I am different. And I pray that my children do the same. I don't want them to do what I'm doing. I don't want them to see things the way that I see them. I don't want them to experience life in the way that I have experienced it. I want them to have their own unique experiences because they are unique individuals, and there are infinite amount of experiences for every single one of us to have. Are we willing to say yes to it and make sure that we are trusting that there is nothing being denied in your life? You think you don't have enough money? Are you prepared to have more money in your life? You don't have a partner in your, are you prepared to have a partner in your life? Or are you going to be like, you know, the people whose life drastically changed without notification and they were ill prepared for it? You ever been ill prepared for something, but yet you have all of the responsibility? You ever been in the kitchen, a kitchen that's not yours and that you've never operated in before, and people are expecting you to make a fantastic meal? I remember the first time I was in a kitchen with a gas stove. I grew up on an electric stove. Every house that I've had, electric, electric, electric. And then somebody's like, you gotta get in here and cook on this gas stove. I'm like, I don't even know how to turn this thing on. Are you kidding me? And y'all want me to do what? Cook a meal for a bunch of people in a place that I've never been? I don't know where anything is. I don't know how this gas stove works. Like, you know what it feels like to be ill prepared and have a huge responsibility, which is why it is important for us to have spiritual practices that expand our spiritual maturity. So you can be ready. As they say, and as I like to say, you better stay ready before you have to get ready. Why wait before something happens before you, well, now let me start praying and let me start meditating and let me start journaling and let me start doing all of the things that I think I'm supposed to do so that I can get to the place that I want to be, instead of integrating it into your daily living, because you are a spiritual being. How are you feeding yourself? You know how to feed yourself as a human. How do you feed yourself as a spiritual being? And are you even clear about what your spiritual state of being is? Do you feel disconnected from the truth? Do you feel disconnected from all things? Walking down the, well, I'm walking down the street, grandbaby girl's on her tricycle, and I'm just looking at how different all of the lawns and the trees in my neighborhood are. And I'm like, wow, here we are living in suburbia where everything's supposed to be the same. And I'm grateful that I don't live in the section that has the HOA, whew, where everything literally has to be the same. And I'm looking at all of the different trees and the different flowers, and I'm like, it was supposed to be a plan, right? Here's a house, let's put some stuff here. Here's a house, let's put some stuff here. There was supposed to be some plan and organization, and yet nature was like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. I'm gonna flower however I want. I'm gonna bloom however I want, because there's infinite ways of being. Why we want everything to look the same? Because we tell ourselves is, if everything looks the same, then we can control it, then we can understand it. That's the human part of us. How are you feeding the spiritual part of who you are every single day, every single moment? There is something being offered all the time, and it's not to overwhelm you, but for you to become aware that all things are possible. I thought I had my Course in Miracles. It must be in the other room. But I talked about, and then I found what lesson it is. It's lesson 79 or lesson 80 in A Course in Miracles that say, let me be aware of the problem so I can see the solution. If you are not clear about what is troubling you, if you are not clear about your spiritual state of being, how are you going to be clear about anything in your life? Where is the foundation? Where is the connection? Because if you fall, what are you going to fall on? Are you just going to keep falling? Or is there going to be something there to cradle you and catch you? And does it have love? Does it have discipline? Does it have intention? And does it have science? We'll save that for another day. But there is this, for whatever reason, this campaign to separate science and spirituality. One can't exist without the other. We'll talk about that at another time because that's a whole word. And so, one of the questions that I offer that you ask yourself this week is, what is my spiritual state of being? What is my spiritual practice? How much love is in my life? Just like you get your utility bill that says from this month to this month, you use this amount of energy, and these are all of the places that it went. When it gives you the graph so you can see and it compares, this is where you were last year, this is where you were last month. And depending upon your utility company, they might even give you some tips to support you in being better the next month. Are you doing that for yourself? Are you journaling to the point where you are seeing what is going on for yourself so that you can look back and be like, oh my God, I was a wreck back in February? I'm so grateful that that thing we were worried about 4 weeks ago, it doesn't still have a hold on us. That where I was a year ago, I'm not still in the same consciousness. Can you imagine? Hmm. And again, it's not for you to feel bad about yourself. It's for you to become self-aware of where your power is. Your spirituality and how you define it is going to be one of the most powerful things that you can do. And not be for anyone else, but for yourself, so that you have something to stand on, so that you have something that holds you up. And when I had that moment of ultimate clarity where I'm like, you ain't never been denied anything, everything that you ever needed to know. Like I didn't even ask for a particular thing to be revealed to me about someone else, but boom, there it was in my face. And I was like, "Ooh, thank you, God." Because I can't imagine what would have come out of my mouth, what behavior I would have engaged in if I did not have this information. Thank you. And not to judge the other person or criticize them, but for me to become more self aware of who I am and how I operate and where my connections are. I don't have to spend any more time worried about this relationship, that particular relationship. I have seen everything that I've needed to see. As Justin Bieber said, I've seen what I needed to see. And I'm so grateful for the revelation. So this week, offer to you, ask yourself, what's my spiritual state of being? What does my spiritual maturity look like? Am I spiritually mature enough to call myself out when I need to? By saying you are denying love, you are denying this, you are not operating in discipline, you ain't got no action or intention behind nothing. You're not being as responsible as you think you are. You're operating in negativity. And one of the things about being spiritually mature, you can ask yourself those questions without it leading to you feeling worse about yourself. You can ask yourself those questions and say, okay, we got something here. This is information I can use so that I can elevate myself. I was really, really, nasty to somebody last week for no good reason. I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm going to do better. I'm going to intend to be better, to do better, to see myself differently, and to see other people differently too, because nothing has been denied. And I'm not afraid to ask. I am not afraid to ask. God, show me what I need to see. But remember, when we're asking these things and they become revealed, you are now responsible for what you know. Wisdom comes with responsibility. Wisdom, when you are aware of things, you can act. You could, but you shouldn't be acting like you don't know. You know. And for those of us who remember when our parents, or adults used to say, now you know better. You know how it felt then. You know how it feels now. When you know better and you're still operating in the same way. If it is making you feel worse about yourself, then you may not be as spiritually mature as you are going to be. I'm going to say, as you are going to be. But be honest and say, you know what? I know I can do better. And these are the things that I'm going to do to support me in doing that. And so defining what your spirituality looks like for you, not what somebody else tells you, not even what I tell you. Because, oftentimes people say, oh, love is my religion. We don't know what that means for them. I was watching the interview Jennifer Lewis, the actress Jennifer, the powerhouse Jennifer Lewis had with Robin Roberts about her accident. I didn't know. She didn't, tell anyone until this moment that she could have died over there um, in the Serengeti. And if it's on Good Morning America, but I watched that interview yesterday where she talked about, you know, I've had a good life. She was literally on a gurney about to go into surgery, and she had the wherewithal. I don't even know how they had the wherewithal to film her after she fell. Like, the person she was traveling with, somebody must have said, turn the camera on so that we can document the fall, not necessarily the fall, but the aftermath of the fall. So there is video of her on the ground in her bathrobe. She fell 10 feet off of a balcony down on some rocks. Unbelievable. And so they of course have to do some surgery because she was broken. But she had the wherewithal to get the camera and say, okay, I've had a good life. I don't want anybody to worry. And I'm thinking to myself, if that is not spiritually mature, that you might be facing the end of your life and you have the wherewithal to say thank you to people. And she's like, this is my last will and testament. So there is no confusion. Take my body back home to my family. I'm like, whoa. Please watch that interview. It had me in tears because it made me think about, where am I in my life? Am I spiritually mature enough that if I was faced with that level of pain and uncertainty in a whole nother country, that I would have the good sense to say, let me put my stuff in order. Heck, I'm sitting here today and don't even have the good sense to make sure all of my affairs are in order. This woman is at the bottom of a ravine and she's like, all right, laughing at some points, telling jokes at some points. And I'm like, that's a level of spiritual maturity that inspires me. And she said, I had to do all of the things that I know to do. I prayed, I meditated. It took her a year to rehabilitate. And it is an amazing interview and testament to the things that she has gone through in her life and how she has um, connected to her spiritual power. She is definitely a powerhouse, but her spiritual power is on display in this interview and in those videos. Because I mean, there are times when I stub my toe and I think all is lost and oh my gosh, this is so horrible. And I'm thinking about, I don't feel, I can't imagine my body being broken. And I'm thinking, let me put my stuff in order. Let me tell people that I love them. Hmm. And so I would offer to all of us this week to think about our spiritual maturity. What are you standing on? What's your foundation? What supports you when the world feels like it is going crazy, when it feels like in your own personal universe things are out of harmony? Because your spiritual practice is not for times of trouble. You are a spiritual being. How are you feeding and nurturing yourself every single day, every single hour? Have you gotten to a place where there is a sense of all is well, whether I know it or not, whether I see it or not, whether I can touch it or not, whether I can smell it or not, all is well. I'm at peace. And I'm going to go back to John 14:27. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Are you operating from a place of fear? Be honest and say, yeah, most of the conversations I'm having with myself, most of my perceptions about the world, most of the things that come out of my mouth are based in fear, anxiety, worry, doom, and gloom. Tell the truth about it. Uh-oh, Instagram, something happened. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I'm going to try to undo it before we get to the meditation portion. It's saying I can't change it. Let's see if I can. I don't want to do that either. Oh, it timed out. It timed out, Instagram. Sorry, we only get an hour on Instagram. That's what happened. That's what happened. Sorry, y'all, on Instagram. Come on over to YouTube. Come on over to Facebook if we friends. I should have said that before it timed out. Now would be a very good time for us to meditate. Any questions, any comments, anything that anyone else wants to say? Now is also a good time to say that. Right before we came on, there were all these things. Like typically, what I do to prepare for our Sunday meditation is through the week, I'll write stuff down on sticky notes all over the place and in my journal when I'm clear about what I think I want to say. But oftentimes, what happens is right before I click go live, all this other stuff will come in, and then I'm scrambling and I got sticky notes all over the place. Mm. And so I'm grateful. That was the other thought that I had right before I came on, because before we even started, Miss Erica was like, y'all give a thumbs up because it'll help the algorithm. I'm like, somebody is taking care of me before I even start. Oh my gosh, that's so much love. And I am going to continue to tell each and every single one of us, if you don't do anything else this week, please acknowledge all of the expressions of love that you see, that you receive. You don't even have to be a part of it. If you see it, hear it, feel it, even if you don't see it, hear it, feel it, just say it out loud. There's some loving going on right now. There is some loving activity going on somewhere. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the love that is being expressed in your life. I hope that you have people in your life that recognize how lovable you are and acknowledge it and affirm it on a regular basis. I I may have said before that I work with a community of sisters. And I don't mean sisters like, black women. I mean nuns. They are sisters. And when I tell you these sisters, every day, I don't care what it is, it could be a lollipop, it could be some curry, because they are primarily from India. There is always an expression of love from them. Like they're happy to see me every day, and I'm sometimes not even happy to see myself. And I have to acknowledge that level of love because I have not experienced that. Now, I feel like I've always worked in places where love was present. I am still friends with many of the people that I had the pleasure of being employed with. But it hasn't always been at this level where even if I'm walking in that building and I'm not feeling my best, the minute an expression of love comes across, it eliminates that. And then I'm trying my hardest to rise up to that level. It's like, all right, you didn't feel so hot when you came in here, but look at all this love in here. And then of course the children trying to say my name is just hilarious to me. Miss Milana, whatever they call me, I know they're talking to me and I love it. Have a good day. I'm like, how could you not feel good about the world that we are able to exist in when there are so many lovable people in it? So please continue to acknowledge love and you will see more of it. I'm telling you, it will be magnified in your life. And I am so grateful that I am supported by love internally and externally. And so now is a good time to meditate on what it means to be a spiritual being. Do you know how blessed we are to be spiritual beings that just happened to be having a human experience? There are spiritual beings having an animal experience. There are spiritual beings having a plant experience. There are spiritual beings having I don't know, I don't know, all of these different, unique, infinite experiences. We just happen to be having the experience of a human, and whatever that means. I'm grateful for it. If I had to come through this life as a slug, I don't know that I would like it very much. Although I've never had the experience of a slug, so I can't speak to whether it's a lovable experience or not. And I'm not going to try to judge it. But what I can say is in this space on Sunday, my intention is to create a loving space for all of us as much as possible. And I recognize and acknowledge, like I said earlier, I know there is somebody who might be watching these videos like, I can't stand her. I don't know what she's talking about. That's okay too. Because if you're watching and you still don't like what I'm saying, something else might be going on, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to you, and that's okay. I don't need to know the details to know that God is in everything. I don't need to know what my part is in it to know that I'm being used at all times. I don't need to know the outcome. I don't need to know what it does for you. I don't. I like to. I would like to know, but I don't need to know for it to continuously be what it needs to be. We don't have to control everything. And as spiritual beings, we should understand that we could not control everything, even if we tried. It's when we're trying to control everything that things go horribly wrong. So allow yourself the spiritual principle of surrender as often as possible. My beloved bought me a hammock for Christmas, and I put it together. And today we were outside. Grandbaby girl and I were outside. And I said, "Do you want to get in?" And she's like, "No," because it's something she's never seen before. And so I sat in it for a little bit, and she was like, "Oh, okay." Which to me is, "Oh, I trust Gigi. And if Gigi can sit in it and it's okay, then it's good for me." And I'm like, "You know what? I love that." I put her in the hammock. And of course, a hammock suspends you. There's literally no support other than the hammocks. And I could see this concern over her face, like, wait a minute, I'm not in control. I just have to surrender and let the hammock sway me back and forth. She was okay for about 5 seconds, and then she was like, "Mm-mm, get me out of this thing." And in that, I recognize the times when I surrender and then I jump out of it because I'm like, nope, I don't have full control. And so I don't like it. And so I am trusting that this meditation be one of surrender. So let's take some deep breaths, come into this moment. Don't worry about what happened before. Let's not worry about what's going to happen after. Can we please center our mind, our body, and our spirit on this moment, right here, right now, where we are all collectively responding to the call for surrender? Woo! And it might be bringing up some stuff for you because it is certainly bringing up some stuff for me, even as I say it. Yolanda, surrender to the possibility that the greatest function of your life is still unknown to you. Oh my God, that's so scary. Even with everything that I think that I know and have experienced, the greatest function of my life has yet to be revealed. Does that not blow y'all away? That the life that you are living in this moment is not over, could possibly, very possibly, be just beginning. And the greatest function of your life, of your human life, hasn't even started yet. Yikes on bikes. Let's breathe into the power of surrender. Oftentimes in our human mind, we think that we are losing something, giving something up, abandoning what we know to be true. But in fact, surrender is full on trust, faith, belief. And so we ask in this moment that our beliefs be based in the wisdom that is connected to divine source energy and not our own. And let us surrender to the idea, to the theory, to the fact that we have never been denied anything, that there has always been a divine intercession at every point in our life, including those times when we felt alone, felt abandoned, felt neglected, unappreciated, discarded. We were not, even if that was the overwhelming feeling. The truth is, spiritually, we have always been cradled in the bosom of the divine intelligence and wisdom that some call God, that some call spirit, that some call names that are unfamiliar to others, but that there is a certain awareness of what that source is. Let us surrender to that source in this right now moment so that we create harmony in our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And as we move through this week, let surrender be in the forefront of our mind's eye so that we recognize that when we relinquish control, we are operating from a place of power. That when we let go of having to know what it's going to look like, who's going to be there, what it's going to cost me, how much of myself do I have to give, surrender to the idea that divinely and spiritually, you are not losing anything, but gaining always. when we are operating from our spiritual self instead of our human self, we are at our most powerful. That we are operating from a level of self awareness and understanding that says, I am connected to a divine source of energy that loves me, that created me, that placed within me particular unique qualities and characteristics that cannot be found anywhere else in the universe. Why would I be afraid? Why would I operate in fear? Why would I allow my mind to be consumed with anxiety and stress and depression when I am operating under the authority of divine wisdom and intelligence? Whew. That our lives can become more expansive and enriched when we surrender. That all of the things that are operating within our body, our breath, our heartbeat, all of the fluids and digestive operations that are going on without our consent, just happening. This miracle that is occurring within our body until it is no more provides us the opportunity to also create from that same space, that same miraculous space where there are infinite possibilities, where we have the ability to create discipline and order in our lives that will continuously feed us, nurture us, guide us, and keep us open to all possibilities of the universe. My goodness, my God. Our minds are so expansive and are waiting for more. May we surrender the resistance that keeps us stuck, keeps us fearful of ourselves and others. And let us recognize that as all of these miraculous things are going on within my mind, my body, my spirit, they are also happening to others. And so may we all operate with more compassion for the walk, for the journey, for the pathways that we're all walking that are all uniquely different. And let me not judge your walk, and please do not judge mine, but let us have a certain amount of compassion and consideration that we're all just trying to figure this out. That we are balancing the realities of being a human and being a spiritual being, and that sometimes it doesn't feel like a perfect marriage because my human self wants to do one thing and my spiritual self knows that's not the right thing to do, but there's this tug of war that seems to go on. Let's surrender and say there are no winners, there are no losers. Let's just let things be and see the truth, because ultimately that's the only thing that matters. And as we continue to breathe and think about this week ahead, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, let us not forget that there is a divine opportunity within these next 7 days for us to see ourselves differently and to see others as spiritual beings. Let me recognize that I'm looking in the eyes of God when I look in the mirror and look into the eyes of another. and that I may not understand the aspect of God that I'm seeing, but let me still acknowledge that it is there. And there's the possibility that I might be amazed by what I see, that my perception might be changed, that my intentions will be clearer when I surrender to what I think I know, what I think I ought to do, what I'm supposed to be doing, what should have happened by now, what's got to happen by then. Let me surrender to all of it and ask that the divine source that I call by a unique name known to myself to guide me, to use me, to move me, to remove me when necessary. Let me acknowledge that presence before I even acknowledge my own human presence. Let me acknowledge the expansion of my spiritual state of being in all experiences. Surrender to that notion that you're learning something at all times and it's for your highest good. Mm. I trust that as our spiritual lives continue to evolve, that we may see ourselves in a more expansive way. And as we said earlier, that nothing has ever been denied, no wisdom has ever been denied, that we are coming into that. One of the analogies that I've used in the past with some of my coaching clients is a spiral staircase. And if you can envision the stairs going around the column in the center, and there may be a particular issue, see that as the column in the center. But as you continue to mature, you are never at that same level with that particular issue. You will see it differently, hopefully in a higher consciousness. And so, what may have held you in fear now will not hold you in fear later as you become more wise, as you become more expansive in your consciousness. But be mindful that when you ask for wisdom, it comes with responsibility. And part of that responsibility is, how are you feeding yourself spiritually? Can you imagine? And I think we are seeing it now. Imagine having all of this power and information and using it in a way that only benefits a couple of people, because that's the level of your maturity. I don't care about them people over there. I care about the people that look like me, sound like me, and like me. I don't care about anybody else. And so, yeah, I've got all of this knowledge. I have all of this wisdom, and I'm going to use it in a limited fashion because that's the level of my maturity. And we see right now people in power with the maturity level that could do with some expansion. I'll say it that way. In the kindest way I know how to say it. Your maturity could use some expansion, some elevation. How scary that is for people to have that amount of power and lack maturity, lack emotional intelligence. It's like giving a gun to a 5-year-old, giving them an instrument of power, but they lack the intellectual ability to understand what that power does. I was thinking about that today with grandbaby girl. She's like, can I have a pool party? I'm like, girl, it's the middle of March. It's windy. It's 50 degrees outside. But she does not have the intellectual intelligence at 3 years of age to know we don't know. And the pool she was looking at was the one she had last year that's got a hole in it. She doesn't have the intellectual maturity to understand that's not possible. Imagine if I gave her the power and said, "Here, girl, go ahead. Take that pool. Here's some water. Fill it up. Rock out." But that's what we're seeing. People that have power and access to things, but not necessarily the spiritual, mental, emotional maturity that is necessary for the responsibility of that thing. It's like, you know, here in Delaware, I just think they give anybody a driver's license. I really do. And then they give you, I don't know if this happens in other places, they give you this magnetic sign to put on the back of your car that says novice driver. That's not going to make anybody feel safer. It's supposed to let you know the person behind this automobile that has the potential to kill us all just started driving. Now, for some people, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to drive behind them or in front of them. I'm going to get as far away from them as possible because they just started driving. But here, we've given them this instrument of destruction. It can be without the level of experience and maturity necessary to operate this instrument of destruction. But go ahead, here's your license, going out there on 95 and hope everything works out for y'all. And we wonder why there's so many accidents on the road. I For all any of us who, signs up for a new application online, and you have to go through the thing to do the password, and sometimes they give you the little thing where it's like click on all the buses, and I'm like, I can't see, is that thing in the square, is it not in the square? It's like it's harder to sign up for some silly thing online than it is to get a gun, to get a car, to get a driver's license, to get a, like, it's just mind boggling sometimes the way our programming is set up. But when you look at that and think of yourself this week, it's like, what am I not being spiritually responsible about? I want to, be out here in relationship with other people, and I'm not even working on my own personal development. I want other people to be perfect, to be loving, to be kind, and I'm not even working on myself. Come on, y'all. Your spiritual development is equitable to the power that you possess in your personal life. I would put that on a t-shirt. I believe that. We put a lot of emphasis on educating ourselves intellectually. Nothing wrong with that. We put a lot of money, time, and effort into that. We put very little time and effort in developing ourselves spiritually. And for me, that has a greater consequences of the trajectory of your life than how much you might know as an intellectually. Because I know a lot of smart people, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I know a lot of intelligent people who maybe didn't focus so much on their spiritual development, maybe didn't focus enough on their morality, perhaps could, do some work in the love department. They smart, they brainiacs, but boy, when it comes to connecting to their heart space, out the lunch. And God bless them too. And I'm not saying that as a, oh, let's judge them or make them feel bad. Not at all. Because certainly, even as much as I feel that I know and that I have connected with, there's so much more for me to know. And one of my spiritual principles this year is spiritual growth. And I know what it means to ask for that. My life about to be turned upside down. If it has to be for me to grow spiritually, then let it be so. I'm clear in who I am and where I can go. I'm clear in that. And I'm still evolving, but I'm clear that if something were to happen, I know what I'm standing on. I know where my peace comes from. I know what I know where I operate from. Am I consistent? Not all the time, but I'm a heck of a lot better than I used to be, which is the reason why it brings me to tears sometimes when I think about how blessed I am. This could have gone a whole other way. This could have all gone left. And I know y'all know what I mean. Some of the things that we have experienced in life, the fact that I'm not on top of a building trying to take other people out, like there are times when I hear about people doing things and then I hear about their life and I'm like, I can see the connection there. I wished it hadn't turned out that way, but it doesn't surprise me when we see some of the things that people have been going through lifelong. And for me, working, at the childcare level, I see, I pray that things don't wind up that way. But to see young people experiencing and being exposed to some of the things that they're exposed to, it, it doesn't baffle me why we are seeing some of the things that we are seeing. It doesn't. It really, really doesn't. One of the other interviews that I watched last night on YouTube was Regina King speaking again to Robin Roberts. And I love Robin Roberts. I would push Diane Sawyer out the way for 10 Robin Roberts because she interviews with so much compassion and grace. It is beautiful and can still ask a difficult question in a graceful way. And she has an interview with Regina King, and I believe it's the first interview Regina King has done since her only child passed away 2 years ago. Um, whew, it was, watch it if you have an opportunity to watch that. Um, but to see her take her grief and transfer it into power, I'm telling y'all, a lot of what we experience as humans, it could go a whole nother way. And we see it on a daily basis. So if you have experienced a particular level of trauma in your life and you're not plucking people in the eye and just being a terror, consider yourself to have a level of spiritual maturity that you may not have given yourself credit for. It takes a lot to take your pain and to turn it into something else. And many of the individuals who come here on Sunday and off, like, we don't know each other. Well, I know some of y'all personally, but we don't know each other like that. To be able to offer and say some of the things that y'all say, that takes a lot. And it's loving. That intimacy that is created when you say, listen, I'm not doing so well, or I love this, or let me share this with you. That takes a lot to bare your soul, or as I say, to bleed in public, takes a lot. It takes a lot. And I am honored and grateful for those of you who have decided that part of your human life work is to show who you are and what you've experienced in the hopes that someone else will see it and feel like they're not alone. And so that's why I offered earlier. It's a challenging time for many of us. As much as I love spring and summer, I also recognize that it's a time of transition and some questions have to be answered and some things have to be resolved. And I have to make some personal decisions that I can't waffle on, I can't hibernate on. Hibernation is over. Quiet time is over. It's time for some action and intention because things are going to start to get accelerated. You look outside one day, there's no leaves on the trees. You look outside the next day, the whole tree got leaves on. You're like, dang, nature is not playing any games, and neither should the rest of us. Nature is about to show you what happens when you hibernate, when you go dormant, but there's still activity going on. Nature is about to show us ourselves. And all of us, I guarantee you, it happens every year. We're going to get to the end of September, like, what happened to the summer? We weren't ready. We weren't prepared. We weren't actively participating in the season of growth. This is the season of growth. So I offer again this week. Hey, look, now I'm acting crazy. Hey, love. I offer to you this week. Think about your spiritual state of being. Where am I at? Where am I at in my headspace? Does this year look like last year and all of the other years? And please also take into consideration that we had a major disruption of everything 4 years ago with the pandemic. The pandemic came and slapped all of us in the face where we thought we knew what we knew. We don't know nothing. But now, as we are starting to emerge and come out of it, surrender to what was. Leave that stuff is over. We building something new, and when you're building something new and you don't have the instructions, you gotta figure it out. Sometimes you put it all together only to reveal you done left something out. You gotta take it all apart again. Give yourself grace, have compassion for other people. I miss you too. And you may not have heard me say earlier that I recognize and I acknowledged with one of my friends that I have not been um, responsible in all of my relationships. I haven't been an active participant in all of my relationships. And when my children are saying stuff like, we don't even see you and we live in the same house, that's a cue to me that I need to do some things differently. So yeah, I miss you too, my love. And there's so many unfinished conversations that I feel like I was in the middle of, and then I started doing something else, and that I want to complete. Um, so here's three things this week. Think about surrender. That's what our meditation was about. Surrender, and not where you think you're losing something, but where you take off your need to control everything and trust that God. You think God don't know what needs to be done? Please cut it out. Knock it off. Everybody knock it off. Surrender and tap into your spiritual being, state of being. What's going on for me spiritually? What does my spiritual practice look like? How am I feeding myself spiritually? What's my spiritual foundation? If you don't have answers for them, start to create some by writing it down in your journal. Watch the interview with Robin Roberts and Jennifer Lewis because my goodness, it set me straight last night. I was like, whew, girl, you better get your house in order. I used to hate when my mother said, you better get your house in order. I was like, I don't even have a house. What you talking about? What she meant was there are things we are all responsible for. Check in on your responsibility level with the things you're supposed to do. Stop avoiding stuff and acting like if you avoid it, it doesn't exist. It exists. It's not going anywhere. Start to, and you also don't want to go to the other extreme where you're worried about it all the time. Come into that middle of that healthy balance where I can acknowledge that you are present and I can also not be so consumed and worried about it that I can't function. Me too. I read both of them too. Well, I did the audio book because I just love her she's teen too much, and I just love that about her. Extremely interesting life that again doesn't always it's not always put in the forefront. But I didn't know this about her. I didn't know that she had a horrific accident, and that's why we hadn't seen her in a while. So watch that interview. And I'm telling you, you want to talk about spiritual maturity. Listen, I don't want to steal parts of it, but there were things going on while she was on the ground. Child, the last thing I would have been thinking about is let me tell people that I love them. Let me get myself together. Let me be clear about what I want my legacy to be. Like, wow. And the way she rehabilitated her physical body was not just physical alone. And if you have the opportunity to watch the interview with Regina King and Robin Roberts, it is also a lesson in grieving, because that looks different for all of us. And if we don't acknowledge the grief that is within us, it can take us away. It really could lead us to places that we, never thought that we would be in. Grief can wreak havoc not on just your life, but the life of the people around you if you're not careful. And so, those three things: surrender, watch those two women and how they have managed to tap into the spiritual power. It's already within you. It's not something that you have to gain from someone. It's something you have to practice to enhance. It's thank you, Professor Natasha, giving us that word 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Self love is a spiritual practice. We need it. You are a spiritual being. Please don't neglect that part of who you are. Feed yourself however you decide to feed yourself spiritually. Let there be love, let there be discipline, let there be intention and action and truth. Let there be truth. I am so grateful for each and every single one of you in your loving selves. Y'all are so lovable. And if there are people in your life that don't recognize and acknowledge how lovable you are, then you need to ask yourself, what are they doing here? And also ask yourself, am I expressing love to them the way in which I express love to other people? Because sometimes we're afraid, particularly with the people who are closest to us. Sometimes we're afraid to express love to them because we recognize that the risk of being hurt is greater with those that we are closer to. Y'all don't know me like that. You say loving things. I do appreciate it. But when it's people that are in your life that know you, it can be harder to express love. But please do so. And please make sure you're doing it to yourself. You are so welcome, your loving self. Thank you with your loving self. Um, Thank you to Erica, because you brought up something I wasn't even thinking about the algorithm until you said something. I was like, oh, yeah, that is something that you need to consider. Thank you for that. That was very loving. Um, I'm going to have to send a note to my Instagram people to say, listen, I didn't boot y'all out, kick y'all out. Instagram only goes an hour. I love to run my mouth. Thank you to my beloved. Thank you to just everyone. I hope y'all take care of yourselves this week spiritually. Take care of yourself spiritually. All the other things are important, yes, but taking care of yourself spiritually and you being able to define what your spirituality means for you is something that you really, really need to focus on. You are so welcome. And thank you for mothering me. Thank you for mothering us. That happens in ways sometimes that we don't expect. Thank you, Erica. We need the tech people to keep us mindful because we're just out here doing stuff, saying stuff, and not thinking about all of the importance of the numbers. The numbers are important. Sometimes I'm like, I don't look at the numbers, but the numbers are looking at you, honey. So let us be mindful of where our power is, where it's going, where we would like for it to go, how we would love to channel it into particular places and spaces. You have the ability to do so. Now is a good time as any to be mindful and be clear about where your power is and where you would like for it to go. Next week, we're going to talk about spirituality. We may talk about, um, it just feels so heavy, science and spirituality, and how I believe that they are a married couple. They really are. You can't have one without the other. Now, I know that there are some, scientific people who would be like, what are you talking about? That's spiritual mumbo jumbo. And I know that there's some spiritual people who are like, oh, science has led us astray. It's been misused. So has spirituality. You know, we if it weren't for some of the scientists creating things, we wouldn't see things that we are seeing now. That's true, but so has spirituality. So I think we can marry the two. We'll talk about that next week. I love y'all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. If you are participating in St. Patrick's Day antics, please be safe. And please be mindful that there are other people who might be participating in St. Patrick's Day antics, and be mindful that they may not be in their right minds. Be careful, be safe, and we will be back here next week. I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. Bye.